Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about a very esoteric manga. A manga that was written and illustrated by Jiro Matsumoto, and it's called Alice in Hell. It was published between September 22nd of 2010 and January 22nd of 2014. It's a relatively short story coming in at only 43 chapters, and if you know anything about Jiro Matsumoto, it's going to be a little bit out there. It's a tale that employs copious amounts of sex, blood, and depravity, let's be honest about it. But if you're into niche tales with dark comedy elements, then this is the perfect story for you. And with that said, guys, let's get into the story itself and start Alice in Hell. You're an idiot, so just repeat after me. You are already dead. You are already dead, responds the girl. The girl continues repeating everything he says as the man gets increasingly frustrated. Elsewhere, a group of scoundrels steal some goods and materials as they tell a woman to strip down. While this transpires, a mysterious woman approaches the thugs. Now this woman is a bit strange. She's dressed up as Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Now the thugs can think of nothing except for banging her. But before this happens, a sniper starts taking them all out. The sniper uses the doll to say that they'll never find him, as he continues to pick them off. After a stern warning, the bandits put down their weapons and surrender. He commands them to strip down and head east, unless they want to die. The man communicating through Alice tells the woman that they'll share the plunder together. The woman, Matilda, passes out and later wakes up in the man's dwelling. Now the man is especially pissed off that Alice spilled some milk on his manga, and he even threatens to kill her over it. Matilda introduces herself, as we find out that the boy is named Shu and he's only 14 years old. He confirms that he's not a road agent, but a man that steals from road agents. He gave a wireless mic to Alice to transmit his speech to the guys, and in this way, he can limit the number of casualties as much as possible. Now, Shu chooses not to affiliate with the commune. His father was killed, so he chooses to live in the city alone with Alice. Now, Matilda attempts to convince Shu to join the commune, but he's steadfast in staying in the city, which he calls the Alamo. Shu and Alice then collect used weapons, as Shu thinks of ways that they could be refashioned. Shu then buries some explosives and shoots at them to test them out. The first two seem to be duds, as the third one goes off. Now Shu wants to shore up the 3 invasion routes to the city. In this pursuit, he considers blowing up a building to have it sort of cut off the entrance. But he decides to ultimately think it over. While inspecting the building, Shu loses his footing and nearly falls down before being helped up by Alice. Now eventually supplies run low, so the two have to carry out another job to secure provisions. 10 days go by and no scoundrels come by. Shu attempts to call Alice back, but her earpiece was blown away by the wind. As he approaches her, a caravan makes its way to Alice's location. It looks like things could turn out pretty bad, but it's just Matilda. And the reason that she's here is because she was worried about the two of them. Now it turns out that the communes are now working with armed parties, which is why there haven't been any road agents as of late. Now Matilda implores Shu to work at the commune for a month, after which time he can return to the city. Back at the commune, Matilda tells Eliza that she took a side trip to pick up Shu. Matilda then wonders between the two of them who's the more gifted shooter. Now Eliza will show Shu his new place, as she's surprised that he's with a lolicon celluloid. Now areas B and C are controlled by armed parties, so Eliza instructs him to steer clear of them. After settling in for a bit, Shu goes out to pursue the markets, as he makes his way to Area B. Eliza looks for Shu on Matilda's instruction, but quickly finds herself in a brawl. While getting some milk for Alice, Shu tells some thugs to get away from her. "That celluloid is mine, don't touch it as you please." The thugs get more demanding, until one punches Shu right in the face. The boy gets battered around some more until he points a gun at them. Unfortunately for him, they have him outnumbered. The thugs then force feed Alice, as Shu gets nervous that she's gonna break. He tries to stop them, but they strip him naked. A man named Kenji from District B then puts a stop to the ruckus, as he instructs everyone to scatter. While Shu puts his clothes on, Kenji says that he's in charge of public safety in Area B. Shu sulks for a bit, saying that he could have won if he only had more distance. Afterwards, Eliza excoriates Shu for not listening to her and staying in Area B. She really lets him have it, and states that if he doesn't listen to her, she'll kill him. At home, Shu considers throwing Alice away if the repairs are too expensive. Elsewhere, Boyle, the man that messed with Shu, looks to grab onto his baby boy. Unfortunately for him, his right hand is shot right off, and we could see that the sniper was Shu off in the distance. While at school, Eliza steals Shu's drawing of a hero. She then curtly says that they have work after school, so he shouldn't run away. During the class, we find out that there are 7 communes, and each one of them has uncontaminated water. But eventually, the communes won't be able to support increasing populations, so it's going to be a problem in the future. Matilda is then conducting a crackdown on all the illegal weapons in the commune. Now, while all these raids are going on, the Schoolgirl Volunteer Corps, to which Shu belongs, is just going to patrol the city. They're basically going to do nothing. And because of this, Eliza's a little bit peeved. To liven things up a bit, Eliza suggests that they storm a smuggler's hideout that Matilda left off of the raid. Shu agrees to help out, but reminds Eliza that it's not a good thing to act selfishly. They get into their positions, as Shu jokingly says that he can blow up Eliza's brains at any moment. Now Shu reminds her that taking out fools won't make her family with Matilda. Inside the hideout, we find out that the thugs are being backed by the Hasegawa group from Area B, and even the Hawkers Guild of Area A. And the Hawkers Guild is Matilda's party. Eliza then knocks on the door, claiming she's here to buy some ammo. Given all the raids happening in the city, they're skeptical to sell to her, but they eventually agree to do so. Eliza takes this opportunity to kick the man in the abdomen, as they bust their way into the hideout. Now Eliza didn't expect so many inside the hideout, as a mass shootout begins. Shu provides backup as he informs Eliza that there's more of them on the second floor. Now one of the men gets trapped on the roof, as Shu patiently waits him out. Eliza forces him to make a move, as Shu shoots him in the ankle. Our work is done. Let's get out of here. Though the twins suffered injuries, no one got killed thanks to Shu's skillful sniping. Upon seeing Matilda, Eliza gets super excited and wants to be rewarded because of it. However, Matilda promptly smacks her across the face. And she doesn't spare her anger from Shu, as she slaps him in the face as well. She then excoriates them for performing an unauthorized crackdown. Eliza is quite perplexed by this development, because she thought that Matilda would be pleased with her results. Now it turns out that scoundrels raped Eliza's mom, and eventually tortured both of her parents until they were dead. And this all happened when she was only 10 years old, and that's why she hates scoundrels so much. Later on, Eliza barges into Shu's room, instructing him to take off his pants. Funny enough, Shu is terrified by this, and even threatens to pull a pin on a grenade if she gets any closer. She eventually jumps on top of him, and he does pull the grenade. I mean, goddamn! Now the next day, Matilda apologizes to the two, as they are currently zoned out on her couch. Shu then visits Eliza, requesting that she give Alice a bath. Now obviously I'm not going to show this in the video, but when he goes to her doorstep, she answers the door without a shirt on. It's actually pretty funny. Now while giving Alice a bath, Eliza thinks it's quite strange that Shu hasn't done anything sexual to Alice. Matilda then meets up with Hasegawa of Side B and Galma of Side C, and she's here to report on her recent successes with the scoundrels. Now Hasegawa wants to cooperate and avoid war, and to this end, she wants Matilda to be in charge of Commune 7. Kenji, Hasegawa's son, wants to settle things with war, but his father says that the aftermath would be too costly, so they can't do that. In his mind, Galma will eventually decline, so what's important right now is to establish a connection with the Hawkers Guild. Meanwhile, Shu enters Side C in hopes of finding a dollmaster. He then takes Alice to a shop, where the dollmaster says that her blood is rotten, and that's the reason why she's acting so stupid. Elsewhere, the scoundrels that Shu allowed to live in the beginning of the story recognize Alice in the streets. And because of this, they determine that Shu must have been the one that killed their men, and they vow to snuff him out as soon as possible. Galma of Area C has bought out all the celluloids, and he wants his men to check all their insides. Hasegawa's going to take over Side C, so Galma is looking for a particular celluloid that he calls his quote-unquote ace in the hole. Matilda hears about the club party being held in Area C by Hasegawa's son, i.e. Kenji. The event is designed to sow peace between Sides B and C. Shu then shows up in his new clothes, a sight that Eliza finds quite amusing. Shu and Eliza enter the party, as the crew that was embarrassed by Shu look to cover up all the exits. Kenji then takes a moment to visit Eliza to see how things are going on Side A. While Shu eats his custard, Eliza says that boys are too girlish nowadays, and that's why she doesn't have a boyfriend. After finishing up his custard, he wants to pick up Alice from the shop, but Eliza demands that he drink a non-alcoholic beverage. Now Shu aims to prove that he's not a kid by taking a huge swig of the drink, but he ends up passing out straight away. And I gotta remind you, there was no alcohol in that beverage. Kenji watches after Shu and says that the juvenile upbringing company of Side B is under his command. The scoundrels that want to take out Shu block his exit, as Shu tells Kenji that he found Alice about a half a year ago. Now it turns out that after a fight with some scoundrels, he found her in the back of a truck. Now Kenji wants to build a new commune with the younger generation, but breaking away from the adults' vested interest would be impossible. Now he tells Shu to join his third juvenile upbringing company in pursuit of this goal, but Shu still wants to fortify his city. But after a bit of convincing, he agrees to join. And this is when the scoundrels make their move. The two take cover, as they both think that Gelma's men are after them. Kenji calls in reinforcements, as a brawl breaks out between the two factions. Kenji uses a pistol, as Shu positions himself behind a body to steady his aim. Though the bullets are straying away, Shu takes them out one by one. One of the scoundrels approaches Shu head on, and since he's not used to close-range combat, he starts to panic. The scoundrel grabs onto his collar and looks to stab him, and it's in this moment that Shu begins to think of his father. The man gets shot by Kenji's men, as Shu looks utterly traumatized by the incident. He makes it clear that he doesn't want to be touched, and mocks them for doing what they're told. Your job is to listen to my orders. Do nothing, think nothing, watch nothing. Stand there and repeat after me, got it? Shu angrily takes his leave, as Gelma's squads go on a full assault against Kenji. Find Kenji's men and kill them all. Eliza attempts to find out what's going on as relations between the two sides completely break down. Backed into a corner, Kenji creates a signal flare so that his men on his side can invade Side C. Now as the war rages on, Shu comedically says that he's surrounded by idiots. And he's just kind of meandering through the battlefield, no one's really taking note of him. Tanks start crossing the border as people start fleeing en masse. Mercenaries working for Gelma bust into the mechanic shop, and they're doing this to apprehend Alice. While they round up the celluloids, Shu intervenes to say that Alice is his. He then pisses himself, so the man gives him a candy before taking his leave. While they're leaving, Shu grabs onto a rifle and lines up his shot. And he perfectly hits his mark, despite the fact that they're in a moving vehicle. And with this, Shu tells Alice they're returning to the Alamo, i.e. the abandoned city. Gelma's reinforcements have completely surrounded the area, putting Kenji's team in a tight spot. While looking for Shu, Alice's team bumps into Kenji's squad, and they'll now have to work together if they have any hopes of surviving this situation. While some thugs rape a woman, they look to take out the crying children. Before they could do this, however, Shu takes them all out. Upon saving the woman and the children, the woman thanks Shu. But Shu claims that he only did this because he wanted the scoundrel's rifle. With Alice in his possession, he wants to collect his money from Matilda and gather up some weapons before he heads back to the Alamo. However, he'll need to fetch Eliza first, since he doesn't want Matilda to go berserk. With snipers everywhere, Eliza and Kenji are backed into a corner. Now instead of becoming prisoners of war, Kenji wants to kill himself to save the others. Alice makes her way closer to the location, as Eliza tells Kenji that his dream of building a commune without any uncontaminated water is stupid. Eliza wonders what Alice is doing as Shu speaks through the celluloid. Quit running your mouth, stupid bitch. If you want to get out of here, listen carefully to what I say. Got it? Morons. Now in 1 minute, they'll have to make a dash 2 blocks forward. And during this time, Shu will cover them. Eliza is reluctant to do this, but Shu wants her to take Alice while they run. And just having this simple responsibility of watching after Alice kind of makes Eliza feel special. The snipers look to take out Kenji's group, but that's when Shu starts picking them off one by one. With them successfully making their dash, Shu tells Eliza to buy him some time while he changes position. Shu gets set up in his new position, as Kenji's group makes another dash forward. One of Gelma's men locates Shu, but Shu takes him out in short order. They attack his supposed location in earnest, but Shu says that God, i.e. himself, is not there anymore. The enemy sniper isn't a human being, but a devil! Kenji's rescue party makes it in time, as they now want to bombard Area C. And with this, the bombardment begins, as Shu now finds himself in a very precarious situation. Side A accepts all the refugees from Side C. Now it looks like Hasegawa's side will take out Side C by tomorrow. And with Eliza safely back in Side A, she jumps into Matilda's arms. Now Shu hasn't responded to any radio transmissions, making Matilda wonder where he is. Alice stays with Eliza for the night, as the latter wonders when Shu will come back. Now it's the following morning and Shu still hasn't returned, so Eliza gets Alice some milk. She then catches Shu scarfing his face with food as she wonders why he didn't contact her. The two begin to argue back and forth as Shu throws a Cornish hen at Alice's face. And he did this because she kept asking him for milk and it was annoying him. She eventually starts chugging a huge jug of milk as Shu punches her down. Alice then angrily punches him in the face as she demands for more milk. She then becomes irate as Eliza is forced to punch her in the gut to calm her down. She then goes completely haywire as Shu wonders what's going on. He decides to bring her back to the repair shop, as the mechanic is wondering what's going on with her. He says that dolls are not capable of violence, but she comedically proceeds to kick him in the face. Now, to help out the doll, the nurse asks the doctor if he wants the super thick syringe that he uses for roleplay. My man. He says this won't be necessary, he just wants the regular syringe. The doctor then uses a tranquilizer to subdue her for now. Elsewhere, Hasegawa's faction has officially taken over Side C. Hasegawa, however, is livid that Kenji screwed up his business relations with the other factions. He officially disbands Kenji's faction and redirects the troops to his youngest son. Now, because Kenji is his adopted son, Hasegawa is not surprised that he made a major mistake. Now, Kenji still wants to find uncontaminated water sources in the desert, and he won't give up on this dream. Elsewhere, 3 celluloid dolls mock and interrogate Galma, and in the process, they even defecate on him. Of course, I can't show you that here, but yeah, it's definitely something. You know, good old Jiro Matsumoto, I mean, the guy always knows how to turn things up to a 12. Now, Galma has been engaged in doll ripping. Now, it turns out that he's doing this because a microcapsule has been planted into a doll's body, and he paid a pretty penny for that info. So they hid it in a doll to make it look like it was a normal transaction. Unfortunately, the doll with the microcapsule has been lost. And as for the information that was inside of that doll, it's coordinates to an uncontaminated water source in the desert. Realizing that his dream is within his grasp, Kenji demands to know where the doll is. And Galma says that it was lost half a year ago in the Southern Caravan route. And this is when Kenji realizes that Shu found Alice in the Southern Caravan route. And it just happened to be half a year ago, meaning that Alice has the microcapsule within her. Galma implores Kenji to put the information to good use, and it's the only way for him to achieve his long-cherished dream. In a dream, Shu imagines Alice as a demonic being. He's so shaken up by this that he puts a gun to Alice's head, thinking about putting an end to her misery. He ultimately decides to let her live as it's now time for him to leave the city. Shu angrily demands his money from Matilda, as he intends on leaving the city tomorrow. Now, Shu is furious that his payment is short. However, Matilda explains that it's because he had to cover his various expenses, something that he didn't think about going into this. Now, if he doesn't get paid his full amount, he demands that she pay with her body. She quickly slaps him off as the boy begins to run a fever. While she takes care of him, she wonders what happened to his father. And in a bizarre flashback, we see Shu dressed up in girls' clothing, similar to the way that he dressed up Alice. The definition of villain: those who don't love anyone, those who don't bring happiness to anyone, and also those who bully children. A caravan of scoundrels comes across Shu in the desert, as he tells them that they're already dead. A man named Hikaru takes out the scoundrels, as they then proceed to raid the caravan. Shu is pleased that the plan worked out perfectly, but his dad, Hikaru, proceeds to whack him in the face with the butt of his gun. He's pissed off that Shu did things on his own accord, and he just wants him to follow orders next time. Rob and the crew gather up all the valuables, as he says that Hikaru is the best sniper in the desert. The haul for the raid is a bit low, so Shu suggests that they sell the scoundrels to the slave traders. But Hikaru angrily tells him not to think. While Rob rapes one of the women, Shu holds onto a child and thinks to himself that this place is absolute hell. Later on, Shu admires his dad's shooting prowess, and thinks that it would be nice if he could snipe like him one day. Hikaru's group is slowly disbanding, and since the caravans are getting more and more heavily armed, it's making it harder for them to make ends meet. Hikaru then decides to spend some time alone with a woman named Yoko. While this goes on, a local law enforcement group comes into the bar looking for individuals who robbed the last caravan. As they make their rounds, Shu decides to peek through the keyhole in the door, and he just happens to see his father in the throes of passion. Later on, Shu, who had never fired a gun at this point, nails a target that his father said was impossible to hit. Hikaru recognizes that this is no mere luck, as he implores his son to continue shooting the targets down. Later on, Shu gets mugged by some children who are a bit older than him, and they even strip him down and embarrass him in front of one of the girls. Shu then heads over to Yoko's place, as she attempts to calm him down a bit. She then becomes emotional when she realizes that her oldest kid would be Shu's age right now, that is, if he was still alive. Shu then says that Yoko should be his mother, since she told Hikaru that she loved him. However, she claims that things aren't always that simple, and it won't work out between the two of them. Shu angrily wonders why she won't marry his father, as his aim from 800 yards is absolutely on point. Shu wants a chance to prove himself in the next mission, but Hikaru says that shooting empty bottles and shooting a human being are two different things. And when you're sniping on a battlefield, you mustn't show any empathy. Hikaru at this point has no empathy left. Shu, on the other hand, still possesses a level of innocence. Later on, Shu finds out that Yoko has sex with numerous men. It turns out that she's the local whore, and each time that she's with a man, she claims that she loves him, meaning that Hikaru wasn't special to her whatsoever. As more clients partake in her services, Shu becomes increasingly dejected. In his depressed state, he contemplates killing the bullies who harmed him the other day. The moment he turns on the light, I'll blow his stinking head off. When the light comes on, Shu finds out that the bullies' parents are throwing a surprise birthday party for him. And although he still wants to exact his revenge, he ultimately decides not to go through with the assassination attempt. Hikaru and the others plan out their next score, as Shu gets ready to play his usual part. The crew waits for 3 days, but no caravans show up. Boo then tells Rob that this will be his last job, as he wants to open up his own dessert shop. After waiting a couple of more days, a caravan finally arrives in the distance. The caravan is heavily armored with 4 escort jeeps for extra protection. And out of the caravan steps a woman who Shu knows quite well, that being Yoko. Shu doesn't say anything as Rob begins the countdown for Hikaru to start shooting. An unexpected sandstorm kicks up, blocking Hikaru's vision from the target. Shu then grabs onto Yoko's arm and says that they've got to run away. That is, if she wants to survive. Upon reaching a safe spot, Shu tells Yoko not to throw her life away without his permission. Shu then says that he's no longer a puppet, as Yoko tells him he's been standing in the road talking to himself this entire time. Yoko then grabs onto Shu's arm as she gets shot right in the left shoulder. The raid begins as Shu can do nothing more than stare at Yoko's near-lifeless body. Hikaru then holds out a pistol for his son and tells Shu to finish her off. "Try it. Do this and you'll be a real sniper," says Hikaru. Rob takes out the other transporters as Shu tells his dad he can't do it. Shu then looks to give the gun back to his dad. "Use this to kill me, Dad." Hikaru is not too happy about this, as he teaches his son a lesson. He eventually attempts to force his son into doing it, but Shu says that they are too close. Rob becomes impatient, so he finishes her off and says that Hikaru is all messed up. Shu then wakes up from a dream. Hikaru then tells Shu that they're leaving town at 9, and if he's not back by then, he'll be left behind. Shu grabs some milk and finds out that Yoko joined the caravan to head to Commune 2, which means that Yoko was really dead and it wasn't just a dream. Shu then decides to rat out Rob, his dad, and the others to the local authorities. He arrives 1 hour past 9, which means that Rob and the others have already left without him. Fortunately for him, this was just a ruse, and they did this to throw him a surprise birthday party. Shu then receives his birthday present, which is a brand new sniper rifle. While looking through the scope, he notices the authorities surrounding the rooftops. He continues to enjoy the party, and knowing full well that everything's gonna end tonight. Boo realizes that they've been found out, as Shu says they're already dead. "Well, ain't this a pleasant surprise, Shu? Just what I needed to get my groove on," says Rob. With them surrounded on all sides, Boo looks to blast a hole in the wall so they can escape. The 4 then jump from the 3rd floor to the ground, and with this, they're off in their escape vehicle. The authorities shoot a rocket at them, but the group manages to narrowly avoid it. The commune then raises the alarm, meaning that all citizens are to take up arms and go after them as if it were wartime. Boo then sacrifices himself to save Shu, as the situation is getting increasingly worse. Boo, who's still barely alive at this point, says that the authorities are waiting to ambush them at the exits. But Rob says that they'll just blast their way through. Now Rob seems to be enjoying himself, as they make their way to the town's exit. Rob then thinks a woman that looks similar to the one that he raped in the desert is his lover. And in his delusion, he ends up getting shot dead in the street. Hikaru manages to blast an RPG out of the sky with his sniper rifle, but the blast takes a toll on him. Shu grabs onto the wheel as Hikaru starts picking off the enemies one by one. Hikaru gets hit, but still manages to clear a path so they can make their escape. Now Boo sustained many wounds, which means he won't be able to open up the cake shop that he so sorely wanted. Now Hikaru's not going to make it to morning time. Yet he says he could still fight as he tosses a sniper rifle over to Shu. Now Shu must think for himself, as Hikaru instructs him to walk 2,500 steps to some dead trees. Hikaru says that he is Shu's target, and it's kill or be killed. There is no turning back. Be aware of the path you've chosen. Upon reaching his destination, he has exactly 1 minute to get ready for their little contest. I don't kill Yoko because I wanted to. I'm not going to kill you because I want to, Dad. I wasn't brought into this world because I wanted to. I'm not your child because I wanted to. Welcome, Shu, to this magnificent world. The two fire their snipers, as Shu's hat gets knocked off of his head. Afterwards, he goes to check on his dad. But as he makes his way there, he sees an image of himself counting out the paces just before they had their gun duel. And once he gets to his dad's sniper, his dad is nowhere to be found. In the now, Shu tells Matilda that sniping is a superhuman ability, meaning that he's a messenger from God to cast judgments upon the pathetic human beings in this world. Matilda feels bad for him, yet Shu wants to go back to the Alamo to kill more people. While walking through the town, Shu can think nothing more than killing everyone that he sees. Upon getting back to his room, he meets up with Kenji and Alice. Kenji then offers him 100 tickets for Alice, and Shu seems rather eager to accept the deal. While he reads the contract for the deal, one of the celluloids gets ready to stab him. In a brief flashback, Erica, the celluloid, was the one who suggested that they steal Alice from Shu. Kenji, however, wanted to use violence as a last resort, as we then go back to real time with Shu reading the contract. Shu then wagers that Alice is worth more than what they're offering, as Erica grabs onto him and puts a knife to his neck. Eliza then barges in to put a stop to Erica's plans, as Kenji tells him that Alice has coordinates to an uncontaminated water source. And given the circumstances, Shu eventually agrees to give them Alice. However, he wants 50,000 tickets as compensation. After leaving the apartment, Kenji realizes that he's in quite a pickle. He doesn't want to kill Shu for the coordinates, but he might have to. Now Kenji doesn't want to disband his army, but Hasegawa orders him to do so. Now Kenji's continued insubordination frustrates Hasegawa, and in his rage, he puts his foot on Kenji and calls him a parasite. At the mechanic shop, Shu can think of nothing more than selling Alice, but the doctor says that she possesses an ability to bestow love upon humans. It turns out that Alice was created for PTSD treatment, and with Alice, there's no need for family or flesh and blood women, at least according to the doctor. Elsewhere, while Hasegawa has sex, Kenji's army barges in to make him their prisoner. Now, according to Kenji, his troops are the only family that he has left, and he won't abandon them like Hasegawa abandoned him. The emergency siren goes off, as Shu reminds Eliza that he's no longer part of the schoolgirl volunteer corps. Shu then talks about strengthening the Alamo's defenses, as one of Kenji's men slugs him in the face. They strip him down as Shu begs for his daddy not to hate him. Now with tensions escalating on Side B, Kenji goes to Matilda to negotiate peace talks. Now Kenji agrees to leave, that is, if he's granted ownership over Alice, i.e. Shu's doll. But as we find out, Kenji's squad has already secured Alice, leaving Shu in quite an embarrassing situation. Seems like a pretty common occurrence for Shu. Matilda tells Eliza to inform Shu that he should just give up on Alice, and thereby become an adult. Eliza checks in on Shu as the boy attempts to treat his tooth in his underwear. When Shu finds out that Kenji has ownership over Alice, he pulls out his gun, ready to take on the entire army. Eliza attempts to talk some reason into him, but when he repeatedly calls her a skank, she smacks him across the face. Eliza agrees to talk to Kenji for him, as she instructs him to lay low for the meantime. Eliza tells Kenji's troops that he doesn't own the doll yet, so anything that they do to her will be considered a felony. While Eliza watches over Alice, one of Kenji's troops looks to have his way with the doll. While watching this, Eliza is reminded of the time when her own mother was raped. She becomes visibly irate as she opens fire and kills all of them in no time flat. Reinforcements come into the room as Shu provides support from the outside. As Kenji's men attempt to secure the exit, Eliza makes a mad dash with Alice in hand. As they escape, Shu pops in with a vehicle. "Howdy, I'm Goku," says Shu. Alice grabs onto Shu tightly as the three of them make their escape. Eliza drives the car erratically, attempting to think of a way for them to get out of this. Eliza then drives straight through a wall, as they get themselves out of the base. Unfortunately for Eliza, she gets shot in the shoulder blade, but she still maintains consciousness nonetheless. She then says that they are the Suicide Squad, and they're here to kill Kenji's faction. With Kenji's faction entering Hasegawa's checkpoint, the entire army mobilizes to fight off Kenji's forces. Mortar shells get launched at Kenji's faction, as Hasegawa's army starts invading with tanks and heavy armored vehicles. Kenji orders for a retreat, but he still wants to launch an artillery barrage when this is going on. Now Eliza gets the vehicle to the desert. However, she starts losing feeling in her body. She makes it halfway to the Alamo before telling Shu to walk the rest of the way. And she wants to do this because she's not going to have enough gas to get to the Alamo and back to the commune. Now Shu is worried that she's lost a lot of blood, and he even invites her into the Alamo, something that he usually doesn't do. Eliza decides to stay behind, as we later see her passed out in the middle of the night. Her mom then visits her in a dream as she says she wants to take Eliza home. Eliza jumps into her mother's arms as they start walking up a staircase towards heaven. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately depending on how you look at it, Eliza was just dreaming, she's still alive. Later on, Shu finally reaches his home, the Alamo. Alice asks for some milk, but Shu needs to prepare himself for Kenji's eventual arrival in the city. He'll even use bullet deflectors to ricochet the bullets, and he says only a man of his talent can master a skill like this. Now to calm Alice down, Shu decides to read her the first volume of The Walking Dead. The Alamo is the center of the world. There is no heaven or hell, and anyone that comes here will get shot down by Shu. Shu proceeds to spend the next 3 days setting up explosives and bullet deflectors to protect the city. And as a final precaution, Shu designs an outfit to perfectly mimic Alice's appearance. Ta-da! I'm Alice from Hell! Now Shu's gonna place Alice's mannequins all over the Alamo, and this is to disrupt the enemy's plans. It is now Armageddon Day, or so Shu believes. Shu waits the entire day in the Alamo, but Kenji's faction never comes anywhere near the city. Later on, Alice tells Shu to teach her more stuff as Shu realizes that he's like a pseudo-dad. Shu agrees to teach her, but reminds her that he will still sell her one day. 3 days after Armageddon, Shu wonders why they haven't attacked the city yet. And while he's pondering this, Alice is cycling around on a record player. Shu begs for someone to stop the record player, as we are then transported to the past again. Shu is a boy and he's standing over his dead mommy. Hikaru approaches Shu and determines that he's got the prerequisite skills to be a good sniper. And he's basing this off of Shu's vision. Shu saw him when he was sniping his mother. They take him in, and Boo calls him Shu because he likes his shoes. 5 days post-Armageddon, and Alice gets herself knocked off of the unicycle by a bomb. Alice then vows to tell Shu what death is like when she eventually dies. Kenji's group finally makes it to the Alamo, as Shu is positively thrilled by this development. Much to his surprise, Kenji waves the white flag and plops his butt into the sand. Kenji doesn't move from his spot for over a night, so Shu eventually makes his way out there. Although Shu is leery at first, Kenji vows that he's not going to do anything. Kenji explains that war broke out, and as a result, they lost many men, and they're running low on ammo at the moment. However, if Shu gave him Alice, they could establish a new generation commune. And with this, Shu then hands him a contract, and instructs him to draw Ryo from Fists of the North Star. Afterwards, Shu tells Kenji he's still going to have to avoid numerous traps, and he'll also have to avoid a sniper rifle if he wants to get Alice. He then tells Kenji his dream is to become the world's greatest psycho killer. And with this, Kenji's attack will start at 8 AM tomorrow. And despite the fact that Shu is being very resistant, Kenji vows that the next time that they meet, he's going to give him a hug. Later that night, Kenji's crew sings Under the Night Sky, as Kenji says that Shu should have just sang along with them. Anyone who enters the room to Alice, i.e. Pandora's box, will face true horror. Shu claims he knew how this would all turn out from the moment that he first found her. Alice is unspoiled by this world, so Shu must punish those who have sinned. It is now time for Armageddon, and it's Shu versus the world. Kenji senses that the Alamo is cursed, and that they'll probably regret this current invasion. Nevertheless, Kenji does this in the pursuit of his dream, so he orders all his troops to start the campaign. While they enter the city, Shu watches their every move from a high perch. He then sets off an explosive in the vicinity of Erika's crew, and most of her crew is taken out rather quickly. And with this, she is completely defenseless against Shu's sniper. And sure enough, Shu finishes off her entire crew in short order. With the central building up ahead, Kenji realizes that Shu is going to pull some tricks on him. They blare some music to distract him, yet Shu doesn't miss any of his targets. He continues to change his position to throw the enemy off of his whereabouts. He continues changing positions to confuse the enemy about his whereabouts. To neutralize Shu's sniper, Kenji advances all his troops forward in a frontal assault. Shu continues decimating the troops thanks to his bullet deflectors. He attempts to detonate the mines, but unfortunately, none of them go off. He then narrowly avoids an RPG as he's now bleeding. Kenji feels confident that he's won, as Shu's sniper mines finally go off in spectacular fashion. In the chaos, Shu picks off every last one of them with extreme precision, and with only 5 people left who can fight, Kenji commands them to move forward. Shu then sees Yoko on the ground, and says it's not his fault that she's dead. Hikaru then tells Shu that he started this fight, so he's gonna have to see it through to the very end, no matter how hard it is. Kenji's men then run into some fake Alice's that are rigged with explosives. Kenji's men fiercely search the building for Shu, as a flashbang goes off to blind them. Shu then takes them out at close range with his pistols. However, he gets shot in the process, and he runs away in fear. With only Kenji left, he's gonna put up a final stand to end things here and now. Now Shu claims that this is only the beginning of judgment, and thus many more will receive as punishment. Kenji says that he's nothing more than a murdering demon, and he aims to put a stop to all of this. I win, Shu. I made it to this room. Alice buries her face into Kenji, but that's when it's revealed that it's not really Alice, it's Shu. Shu plunges the knife into Kenji's abdomen as the latter drops the gun in his hand. I told you that I'd hug you the next time I saw you, says Kenji as he embraces him with a hug. Shu releases himself from Kenji's grip and begins to stab him furiously in a fit of rage. When he concludes his stabbing spree, he begins to cough up blood profusely. Now because of this, Shu believes that he's done for. But Alice says that he's not going to die as long as he's with her. Now the reason that she was built was for this very moment, to provide comfort and ease for his suffering. Shu realizes that everything he did was pointless, and he wants to do things over properly this time. Eliza then enters the Alamo with her troops, demanding that any surviving members from Kenji's faction surrender themselves to her. As she investigates the region, she finds Kenji's lifeless body. She then remarks that Shu promised her that he would be waiting for her in the Alamo, but he's nowhere to be found. Sometime later, Matilda says that the communes will surpass their sustainable population in the next 5 years, so they need to find an unspoiled water source in the desert. She pukes in a nearby wastebasket as she informs Eliza that she's going downhill. Because of Shu's actions, Kenji's Lost Boys are running amok in District C. Matilda then wonders if things would have turned out differently if they only had the coordinates to that uncontaminated water source. However, Eliza says that Alice was a trap. The only way to establish a new society is through your own strength. No giving up, no regrets. The future is something you conquer with your own 2 hands, says Eliza. Matilda hands Eliza her journal and implores her to write down important information for the next generation. And before Eliza heads off, the two give each other a heartfelt, albeit slightly strange goodbye. In her search for a water source, Eliza finds out that there's a Devilkin ambushing caravans in the desert. However, if they have Dragon Ball Volume 19 with them, they should be safe. The Desert Devilkin. Word has it he's a terrific sniper. No man in his visor remains spared. Eliza then writes in her journal that the work is nothing short of an absurdity. The great wars and disasters from the past have left deep scars in the people's hearts. Yet, she has faith that the world will eventually become a better place. Elsewhere, we see Alice in the desert, as she was frustrated that her earpiece got knocked out again. As he pedals his rusted bike over to her, he complains that the world has gone to shit. Every last person has allowed this to happen, and for this, Shu calls them a bunch of idiots. And with that, guys, that officially ends Jiro Matsumoto's Alice in Hell. Like all of Jiro's tales, it was a bit strange with copious amounts of sex and violence. But this was to be expected. I thoroughly enjoyed myself while reading this manga, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. If you got the time, hit that like button and subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'll catch you on the flip side.